Conscience, the radio show. We are halfway through the Citizen Celebrity segment, and I'm really excited about my guest. We're talking a lot on and off air, and it just is uplifting and encouraging to hear someone's journey of discovery, whether it be self-discovery, history, community, art, and I'm really grateful for Miss Carol Mundy for coming in and chatting with us. Right before the musical break, we talked about her being in Florida and her collecting there and how everything came to be. Before we go back to that, I'd like to throw an ode to Young X featuring Big Young. Grip of Your Love was the track you heard going to the musical break. Thanks oh so much for that. Ms. Mundy, we were talking about Florida. Yes. And how you began collecting things. As you collected, there obviously became some interest because you're now involved with the University of Central Florida. Talk about that if you would, please.
Well, I collected for a long time, and one of the things that happened for me is that I was working with a lady at the Zora Neale Hurston Museum. A lot of people don't know who Zora Neale Hurston is, but
right.
She was a famous author, writer, and she grew up in a town that happens to be the oldest incorporated town, African American incorporated town in America.
Really?
They are celebrating their 125th year this year of autonomy. They have always run their city. There was never any stop to them running their city ever. And 125 years later, they are still running their city. We got a grant for $250,000 to develop my collection because at the time I was taking classes to learn how to archive.
Okay.
And then I decided I needed to know some more about the history of the items. So I was going to the library downtown and working closely with them.
Wow.
On researching objects and trying to understand how they fit into our lives. And I became exposed to some of the universities in the state. And I started taking up causes to save colored normal schools, to save the old courthouse in one town because they were going to tear it down. And so I would go set up exhibits, we'd invite people in, and try to change their mind about preserving some of the community buildings and some of the culture of the community. So University of Central Florida wanted the collection in totality.
Wow.
But I decided that I didn't want to do that. And so what I did is, after meeting Dr. John Fleming from Cincinnati, who was working at the Cincinnati Museum, Tavis Smiley was starting his America I Am tour, and somebody told them about me in little old Florida, Cincinnati. So he sent one of his representatives down to Florida, and she spent 4 days just trying to get through it and look at it. And we talked, and she was saying to me, "This is amazing. Dr. Fleming, I called him, he wants to come."
Right.
So Dr. John Fleming came down, and he told me he was blown away. I had archived it and put it in acid-free materials.
Right.
I took a whole room and turned it into shelving in boxes because I knew the importance of preserving it. We have to do this. We cannot expect another group of people to tell and interpret our history.
Yes.
That is our job.
What an amazing labor of love. And you'll notice that I throw O's in front of everything, and it's kind of my way of showing love and support, not only for the city of Cincinnati, but Ohio as a whole. So in the city of Cincinnati, we throw O's like dominoes to kind of throw shout outs and things like that. But what I find fascinating is that your willingness to take on such a large labor of love. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think what happened to me was it became my baby. I believe that I was purposed.
Wow.
And purposed is the word that I use because that's what I believe. I have never enjoyed, cried over, worried about, embraced anything other than my children.
Yes,
I have to say that.
Yes, ma'am.
As I have collecting. And it took sacrifice. Other people were taking vacations. I was getting on planes going to different parts of Florida because I was working for a major airline.
Okay.
Which I did that so that I could collect.
Right. There was a method to the
Yes.
madness.
So I was working for a major airline, and I had just adopted a child. She was 2 weeks old when I got her.
Wow.
So, it kind of became apparent that I was going to have to be able to travel to get some of this done. But Florida was the reason that this happened. It was the birthplace of what was in me.
Right.
It was like my fertile soil of what was to come. And the University of Central Florida approached me the first time. I was like, no. Then Dr. Fleming talked to me because we had a major storm in Florida where they just missed my house. A tree just missed my house by a couple of feet.
Wow.
And then I started to think about the fact that if something happened to this collection, what would be destroyed? And he talked to me, and he got some pieces for America I Am, which are touring now. And but he told me, he said, you need to think about what's the next level. All I knew is all my friends and relatives thought I had OCD. And this is all. And I just could not help myself. And she's just a little off the driven path, but she's okay.
She's harmless.
But she won't hurt anybody. This is just her thing.
Yeah.
And I talked to my children, and I didn't see that they were going to pick this. They have their own lives.
Right.
Everybody has their own passion and
True.
their own purpose.
True.
And that's okay.
Right.
But then I had to make some major decisions. So I have a friend up at Temple named Dr. Charles Bloxson. Thank you, Dr. Bloxson. And he talked to me about what you can get if somebody wants your collection. Because his collection's at Temple.
Okay.
And I said, what can you get? And he said, you can get whatever you want. I mean, you got the goods.
Right.
And he encouraged me to make some bold requests. And they were bold, because my attorney's like, this is not going to fly. Okay, they're not going to do it. So, but just put it out there. Let's just see what happens.
Because you're not just doing good work, you're doing God's work.
And God was going to fix it.
Yeah.
After all those years of just collecting and putting in my home, school children used to tour my house because every wall from the ceiling down was covered.
Wow.
Every room was a different theme. So that's what my baby had to grow up in.
Oh, lucky her.
Yes. So, but they actually stepped up and said, get an appraisal, and we want to do this. And that's how the Carol Mundy Center came into existence. And that was my partnering up with African American Studies at the University of Central Florida, which is the third, I think it's the third, forgive me, you see if I don't get this right, but I think it's the third largest student body in the country.
Oh, wow.
So that's how we got started. It worked out.
Yes.
And I am, but I was not going to let my Cincinnati part go.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, Chicago, Detroit, I kept all of those sections because, and Washington, I used to go to those cities just hunting in the black community.
Wow.
See, that was the fun to me. I could be riding down the street just like I was with my best friend here a couple of days ago. I was like, there's a yes.
Uh-oh, she's got that gleam in her eye.
So we turned around and went in, and I actually found a couple of things, but that is always foremost in my mind.
Right.
If I've got to get the next discovery. But you have to think, my collection goes from 1702 to now, because I've collected Obama.
Right.
I've got Tupac. I got all the rappers and people who were doing wonderful things.
Yes.
Because we're creating history now.
Right now.
Right now we're creating history, and you document it, and you think beyond today. And I just get things that I know one day people are going to be talking about this, and I need this in my collection.
Do you find folks find it harder to find relevance in older things or the newer stuff that you find?
I think it's relevance in all of it, because what's current now, your children's generation, if you keep it that long, and you know to care for it and keep it, will be for them to tell their children about. We're passing this from generation to generation. History's being made every day, and we need to document that. Whether it's newspapers, I mean, some people keep newspapers.
Yes.
Some people keep old jets.
Yes.
Ebony's.
Yes.
But all of that is really history.
Mm.
And if you can think beyond 50 years, now you've got a treasure. And we are the culture keepers for our people.
Oh, yes.
We have to do that because I noticed that even when I see things interpreted in museums, I'm thinking, why did they take this angle?
Mm.
When really there were so many other things happening at the time
Right.
that we could talk about. And even in the schools, my daughter used to complain to me, why do we talk about the same people? There were so many ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and especially here in Ohio.
Yes.
And in Cincinnati.
Yes, ma'am.
And all of those things are part of what makes this a great city.
Yes.
And culturally important. And I grew up in Walnut Hills, which was, that was pretty nice neighborhood when I was coming up.
Yeah.
I can remember the businesses, thriving businesses, just in the block I lived on, Chapel Street.
Yeah.
You know, you could go up and you could go to the gas station, the drugstore, you could go to the automotive shops, it would all be black-owned business.
Yeah.
And, you know, and just the whole thing about the military and the men who serve. So my brain is always jumping everywhere.
Yeah.
And anything that our people touched, I want it.
Yeah. What a great endeavor to take on. We're going to take a break really quick. When we come back, I want to talk about you being here and sharing your discoveries of what you've learned with folks over at Sweet Sister Splash.
Oh,
really
yes.
excited to talk about
Yes,
that.
yes.
We're going to go to a musical break. When we come back, more I'm Jay All Day. Hopefully, your turn.